Good afternoon. Welcome to the Senior Focus. I'm your host, Attorney Nick Kaltzis. I'm here with Robert Dwyer, and he is the Executive Director of Central Mass Agency on Aging. Hello, Bob. How are you?
Great, Nick. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. The shape of our economy and, fiscal issues and fiscal matters, that's what we're going to talk about today. And I got to say, these things really, really do frighten me.
Well, they should frighten. They should frighten all of us because
I think they really should frighten all of us.
The reality is that whatever happens, it's not going to be pretty. And even if I believe, even if there's a stop before we quite go over that fiscal cliff or mound or whatever people are calling it now.
You think we're really going to go to the fiscal cliff, as they say?
Well, I think that people don't realize that no matter what happens with that, there are some things that have been taken off the table. For example, going back to some of the taxes that we do pay. It's not just the income taxes, it's the Social Security taxes. The increase in Social Security taxes will happen. So we'll all be paying that extra going forward, irrelevant of whatever deal is brokered in Washington. They've all agreed on that one.
Right.
So our Social Security taxes will be going up. So what else might happen? I don't know. We're told that Wall Street's not going to be immediately affected because they've already been preparing for it. Things have been happening there. But somewhere, somehow, whatever compromise is reached out, people can say entitlements are off the table.
Right.
I don't believe it.
Yeah.
And I don't believe it from either side.
I don't think that they can be off the table.
I
think everything's got to be on the table. Revenue increases, entitlement programs and expenditures, they got to take a look at everything.
I agree. For a long time, even the Old Americans Act programs, which, as you know, my agency works with, I have been saying for a long time that, the age for that is 60 years old.
Right.
And we don't need that to be 60 years old anymore. That can be increased to 65 or even 70, perhaps with an escape clause, if you will, for people who are disabled.
Right.
I think there are allowances that can be made for those who really need it.
Right.
And that's the question. Will Medicare age go from 65 to 67 to 70? I think it might over the course of time.
Yeah, and I think that it should. I mean, you take a look at Social Security, right? They factored in, when someone was born, the year and the month of their birth, and they gradually are increasing the age of full retirement. And I think they should do the same kind of thing for Medicare. So that when a person's 65, they're not automatically entitled to the program. There isn't enough money. If they don't take a strong look at certain programs, there isn't going to be money for anyone. It's going to hurt us. It's going to hurt us all.
Well, I think we look at now what's happening simply with the potential of this sequestration that could take place before the year starts or as the year begins.
Right.
When you look at some of the figures that are being published as to what people will lose, I mean, there's got to be a give and take somewhere.
Right.
I don't want to see, and I'll be very honest with you, if Medicare is changed, I don't want to see the quality of care changed for people who rely on Medicare. Now, is it possible that, again, as you mentioned, we can change some of that eligibility from I'm open to talking about that. Right. Of course, I'm not the President of the United States.
Right, sure.
But I would be open to talking about that. But as long as the people who really are in need of it are able to get it. We look at the Older Americans Act programs. Anybody who's 60 years and older can walk into a senior center where there's a meal, pay a suggested donation of $253 and get a meal, whether it's a very, very poor person or it's Jack Welch from GE.
Right.
And I think on one hand, the Older Americans Act program used to always be seen as a great equalizer. It was open to everybody. It was age-based, and that was one of its glories. But we're not there anymore. We've moved beyond that, and I think we need to look at need-based.
I wonder how they can determine or enforce eligibility if the Older Americans Act, like you said, a person can go in, pay, the suggested donation of $2, $250, have a meal, whether they have $1 billion in the bank or whether they have nothing in the bank. How are the administrators of the senior centers and other, we'll say, congregate meal places going to be able to determine eligibility? Like if we try to change the rules that say, hey, you can have the meal, you can pay, the suggested donation, but it's really for people who need the service. How do we determine if someone needs the service or not?
Well, I think there are different ways to do that if
Okay.
that's what we want to do. The first thing is, if you just want to change the base of the age, obviously that's more easily checked
Right.
than anything else. Give me an ID. You want to be 65, you need to be 70.
Right.
That's not a problem. Anything else would take some kind of assessment or analysis. How do we gauge need for any program?
Right.
So you're removing it from simply that age basis and putting it into a needs base. That's a possibility. I think it has to be a
Yeah,
possibility.
I think that not only might they want to increase the age, but it should be a needs-based program. If someone has the resources, the financial wherewithal to feed themselves, clothe themselves, live independently in the community, I don't think that they should be the cause for someone's distress and someone who can't, live independently in the community. So if you have sufficient resources, I don't think that, you're availing yourself of these benefits should detract from someone who actually does need the benefit.
And that's
There
just
isn't
it.
enough money.
There is not enough money. And again, these things date back to 1965. All these programs, Medicaid, Medicare, Older Americans Act, 65, Lyndon Baines Johnson. It was the Great Society.
Great Society
The Great
programs,
Society
right.
programs. And they've done an awful lot of good. They really have. They've kept a lot of people out of poverty, especially, oddly enough, the Older Americans Act, as small as it is, it's one of those discretionary programs. It's not an entitlement, so it's going to come under fire.
I hope that the legislators that we have will recognize and realize that the Great Society programs, Medicare, Older Americans Act, these kind of programs that were instituted, like you say, back in the 60s, 65, there's been an increase in a person's life expectancy. So perhaps back in the 60s, in 65 or something, to establish a particular age where, at this age you're entitled to these benefits, I think it was because life expectancy wasn't for a great period of time beyond that. So, if they were needy and they needed assistance, it was there. There was a safety net. Take a look at things now. 40, 50, 55 years later, it's not the same. Life expectancy has grown. So by the time someone's 65 years of age and they retire or they get these benefits, there might be another 30, 40 years that, you have to provide benefits. There isn't sufficient resources and money to make that happen.
Right. And these are some of the hard choices. People are always talking about the hard choices.
Right.
That
They need to be made.
But some of them do need to be made.
Right.
But again, let's be sure that we are safeguarding those who truly need the service, that need the help.
Right. Oh, I completely agree.
When we're looking at what's going on in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the cuts that the governor are trying to make.
Yeah, there's big cuts coming.
Huge cuts
Right.
coming. Prescription Advantage, over $500,000 out of Prescription Advantage.
They've been talking about doing away with Prescription Advantage for years.
They have.
For years.
They have. Ever since Medicare was amended
And it
to
never
include,
goes away.
But it has grown smaller.
Right.
And the reason it's grown smaller is that they are trying now to really focus it on that donut hole. That now the donut hole will probably at some point be going away too,
Right.
because of the Affordable Care Act. So it's in that Prescription Advantage they're finding some free money, as you will.
Right.
But they're also looking at special education. Who is that going to affect? How is it going to affect them? They're looking at all sorts of different types of. Now they're also talking about local aid. The governor is going to the legislature and saying, I want to take money out of local aid because we can't afford to give it in.
Right.
And the towns are in an uproar.
Right.
Of course they're in an uproar. We're all in an uproar.
Right.
When you're talking about taking money out of our budgets, away from our revenue, because we believe in what we do. We absolutely believe in what all of us, towns, nonprofits, all of us.
I think that, with the fiscal cliff and sequestration. We're talking about, across the board cuts, not in a thoughtful manner on how to make the budget meet, in balance. We're talking about just across the board cuts. And I think that in the event they don't sit down, the legislators come up with some proposal, try to come up with a budget, they're going to do a lot of harm. But I think it would be possible if everything is on the table and the people that we have in Washington are responsible and are working for us like they're supposed to be. They ought to be able to come up with some kind of a compromise situation where, increased revenues are taken into account and decreased spending is taken into account.
Yeah, you want to hope that that's going to happen. But part of the problem is that there are not really just two sides to the story.
No.
You have, obviously, in terms of the Democratic piece, you have the very liberal Democratic side. You have a moderate Democratic side. You have the Blue Dogs Democrats. On the Republican side, you have not only the mainstay of the party, you also have the Christian right, and you have the Tea Party.
Right.
So you've got everybody barking at each other, and unfortunately, I oddly have felt a little bit bad for John Boehner, because he's the one trying to gather it all together and, as they say, herding cats, which is almost impossible.
If they're not able to sit down and compromise their position, work together, come up with some solution to the problems that we face, there is an election that is going to, come about, and they do have to face a re-election from their constituents.
Yes.
And it is incumbent upon people, if they see things are not progressing the way they want, get out and vote.
Yeah, they need to get out and vote. I agree with you. It's always been my argument against term limits.
Of course, I said that with the last election, and didn't turn out exactly as I had planned.
And that's the unfortunate piece, and that's part of the problem, is that people will complain about their legislators, but they may not all come out to vote to get rid of them, to move them along. Now, that may point to the fact that there are just an equal number of people who appreciate what the legislator is doing. Or it could point to the apathy that you've been talking about for how many years now, in terms of getting the people out to vote.
Yeah, no, it's a problem.
Or it's a combination. Or it's a combination of all that. But the sides do need to come together somehow. And I think we all need to be prepared, as we said at the very beginning. We need to be prepared to experience a little bit of a dent in our lives to make this happen and happen correctly.
Now, I know you probably are not going to agree with me on this, but when you take a look at the dynamics of the Electoral College and you think, okay, it's antiquated, does it still do the job? And then you take a look at the popular vote and how the popular vote apparently, came to pass. I think that there still is a significant duty, responsibility, a good that can occur with the Electoral College. I mean, like for instance, you will harken back to, 18 to 29-year-olds. I'm just not quite convinced or certain that they understand the sacrifices that need to be made, or it's going to affect the entire population.
Well, I would like to give the younger generation a little bit more credit than that. I just necessarily can't. I know there are people. That being said, there are people who are very fiscally conservative, who are younger.
Right.
And I'm saying
That's
younger.
true.
It's not necessarily 18 and 20 years old, but certainly even late 20s, early 30s, into the early 40s. But they're also socially progressive. We've had this discussion too. I think that we need to look at the real tenor of American culture. That doesn't mean that people need to put aside what they really believe in and simply bow to polls or to People magazine. I suppose I shouldn't say something People magazine and like that, but or to any media outlet. We'll put it that way. But perhaps there needs to be the growth of another party who may put the Republicans over here, who may put the Democrats over there, and say, okay, this is what we believe. Yeah, we're fiscally conservative and socially progressive.
That's only going to happen if the citizens mobilize and get out there and make it happen. But on that note, we're going to have to head to a break right now. When we come back, I do want to talk about, specifically some of the cuts that I think seniors can expect are coming their way.
Sounds great.
Okay.
When I was told I had to come for therapy, I said, oh, please, can I go to Millbury Healthcare?
I came here because I had a stroke. My husband looked around and he came here and he said, by far, it was the most joyful, happy-looking place. I like friendship. My life is friendship. And I've really experienced friendship here.
If you have to be somewhere, come here.
The Massachusetts Symphony Orchestra returns to Mechanics Hall Saturday, December 8th for its annual Holiday Pops concert, an ideal celebration for friends and family or your company's holiday party. This treasured holiday tradition features favorites of the season, light classics, dance theater, local college and university courses, and the tops of Broadway. Tickets are on sale now by calling 508-754-1234 or by visiting masymphony.org.
Tired of weather reports that don't focus on Central Mass? Introducing Worcester Weather, the only video weather report for Worcester. Worcester Weather is easily accessible 24/7 by visiting chartertv3.com and is updated throughout the day to give you the best video forecast possible. Worcester Weather also airs at 5 p.m. during the Jordan Levy Show and every Worcester News Tonight telecast. Worcester Weather gives you the local forecast you have always wanted. Worcester Weather on Charter TV3 and chartertv3.com. Brought to you by Berterra Nissan of Auburn.
If you're still using phone company DSL for the internet, there's only one question to ask yourself. Why? With speeds that start at 30 megabits per second, Charter delivers the nation's fastest internet. And that's not us saying that. It's PC Magazine. Phone company DSL, by comparison, is slower and more expensive. And I don't know about you, but I don't want my internet slower and more expensive. Try Charter. It's smarter.
Join me on the Hank Stoltz Experience. People are always asking me, what is the experience? Well, that's the beauty of it. It's everything that has to do with Central Massachusetts, from the politics of the region to the great events that are going on each and every weekend or every night right here in Central Mass. It's everything that's going on. It's everything that you want to know about. And just like Kelly Square, where the traffic never stops, we never stop either. There's no red lights on the Hank Stoltz Experience, only on Charter TV3.
Charter TV3 and UMass Memorial Healthcare have teamed up to bring you the latest news and trends in healthcare. Health Watch, presented by UMass Memorial Healthcare, brings you the healthcare topics that are important to you. From stroke prevention to allergies, skincare to sports injury prevention, and nutrition to pregnancy, Health Watch and UMass Memorial Healthcare informed you on the issues that affect you on a daily basis. Health Watch on Charter TV3. For extended interviews with UMass Memorial Healthcare experts, log on to our website.
I'm Caitlin Tivnan from Worcester News Tonight. Thank you for choosing Charter.
Welcome back to the Senior Focus. I'm your host, Nick Caltas. I'm here with Bob Dwyer. And during the break, we were talking about some very interesting things. But we're going to try to narrow it down now and talk about cuts that seniors might be looking at. Now, the cuts that, to the Older Americans Act, are those already something that we can expect is going to happen, or is it something that might happen? You take a look at Massachusetts and the cuts coming.
Yeah.
They're pretty significant.
They're very significant, and you're talking about the loss of those 250,000 meals.
Right.
250,000 meals that
Right.
won't get served in Massachusetts, not in the nation.
Right.
In Massachusetts.
Right. Wasn't there an issue with milk being provided with the meal, maybe, was it 3-4 years ago? I mean, yeah, I think there was an issue. There wasn't enough money to fund for milk. Do you remember that? Is it?
No, that's not within
You don't
my
remember that?
memory, no.
Because I was going to say that, now we're talking about the entire meal taking the hit.
Yeah, well, I think that what we look at is the entire meal is going to take a hit. People are going to take a hit. Again, who's going to be targeted with it? Right now, we're already told when we get an allocation for Title III-C meals that a certain percentage is supposed to go toward the congregate meals,
Right.
and a certain percentage to the home-delivered meals, or what we call Meals on Wheels.
Congregate meals. What is that? What is the congregate meal?
The congregate meals are the meals that when you go to a senior center,
Yep.
and you're able to sit with other people, your friends, people in town, people in the city.
Right.
You're all there having the meal together.
Right, so it's a place
it's a
where everyone
when people
goes.
congregate.
Yeah, they all go and join together and enjoy
Right.
a meal.
And the home delivered meal is what we've always called the Meals on Wheels.
Right.
So that is, that's the people who are homebound and who cannot get out of their homes. And they rely on getting that meal for that day,
Right.
or one meal a day for a week, along with some frozen meals to have in case of a power outage or snow, deep snow. But those are the ones that really need the nutrition, who have no other access to nutrition.
And I think that these cuts would have a trickle-down effect. For instance, excuse me, in my experience with a person applying for benefits through the program All-Inclusive Care for the Elderly, the PACE program, Summit Elder Care here in central Massachusetts. One of the requirements to have benefits provided through Medicaid, Mass Health, is that you have one service provided through the Executive Office of Elder Affairs, and at least in my experience, typically it is the Meals on Wheels program. If they have to begin curtailing the number of meals that are available, I think there's going to be this trickle-down effect that, people are going to have to scramble to look for some other way to gain eligibility to participate in that program.
Well, you want to talk about a trickle-down effect.
Yeah.
Let me talk to you about the full trickle-down effect of this. Okay, so you're talking the loss of 250,000 meals.
Right.
Okay, so first, the first effect is someone's not going to get a meal somewhere. 250,000 not going to be served. All right, that's the first piece. You're not serving as many meals. That means the cost of the individual meal goes up.
Right.
Okay, because you're not going to have the economy of scale
Right.
that you once had. If the cost of the meal goes up, that means there are fewer meals you can buy.
Right.
So that affects two entities. One, of course, is the individual again, because there are fewer meals now that can be purchased. But the other is the provider of the meal, the caterer. So maybe they're going to have to lay off somebody. Maybe that's going to affect what they can do, because they usually deal with 2 or 3 different programs. For example, the caterer that helps in Worcester, in the South County of Worcester, is up off of Millbrook Street. And if they have to change their kitchen, maybe someone's going to lose a job there. So you're talking about all that trickle effect. And so this whole thing affects, it's not just, it's not only, I want to say just, it's not only the 250,000 meals, it's what happens with that and what goes along with that.
I take a look at it, and we're going to talk about some of these things, but I think that hopefully the people in Washington, our legislators that are there to do our bidding and get this done for us, will realize you can't just throw money at something and expect that it's going to result in a positive effect. You take a look at the amount of money we've probably spent in the past 4 or 5 years, about $500 billion on, we'll say, the war against poverty. There's more people in poverty today than there has been, since this, we'll say, unbridled spending spree took effect. So I don't think it's just, that you spend the money. There has to be a conscious and deliberate analysis of what it is that is going to have the most effect. And what we're facing, unless they come up with something, before, what is it, January 2nd, an across-the-board cut that really is going to further drive us into a depressed condition.
Well, I don't know if it's going to drive us into a depressed condition any more than I think that a 2% increase on the earners over $250,000 is going to drive us into a depressed condition.
Well, like I say, fine. Have a deliberate and a conscious analysis of what you're going to do, and have some revenue increases, couple them with meaningful cost reduction in expenses, or if, for instance, you take the entitlements off the board. We're not going to talk about entitlements. We're not going to talk about Obamacare. If it's like 20 or 30% of your budget, you've got to talk about these things. When you talk about a 2% increase in the taxes for those that earn above like $200,000, if it only generates sufficient capital through the increase in taxes to fund the government for like 18 days, big deal. A year is 365, not 18. So it isn't just taxes that are going to cure the problem, and it isn't just taxes on those who earn over $200,000. There needs to be, I think, a restructuring of the tax code to bring parity and equality amongst all the people. Half of the people in this country do not pay income tax. They don't pay income tax at a time when we're about to go into a financial abyss. I think that's ridiculous.
Well, but what's the question? Why don't they pay income tax? Do you have the answer to that?
Because of the tax code.
Oh, easy enough said.
Right.
You're going to blame the tax code. But what in the tax code prevents them from paying or having to pay taxes?
Basically deductions and exemptions.
And maybe they don't earn enough to pay some taxes.
I think there are some people
You just said
No,
the rate of poverty has increased so much. And the people in those places don't pay taxes. They don't make the money.
I think the rate of poverty has increased so much because food stamps has gone up, unemployment insurance has gone up, welfare has gone up. They've gutted the work requirement reform passed by Clinton. I think all these have a very, very bad effect on the economy. Now, as far as half of the population not paying taxes, half of the earners not paying tax, it's not because people that are unemployed or people who earn $10,000 a year. There are people who earn a very substantial and significant income, but they have their lawyers, they have their accountants, they go out, they utilize the professional expertise of these people to take advantage of the tax code and try to avoid having to pay taxes. I think there needs to be a revamping of the tax code, not like the last revamping. Every time the government seems to say that, okay, we're going to make things more simple. Well, let's talk about the Massachusetts Uniform Probate Code as an example. I'm not a huge fan of a person having to go to court. Sometimes, of course, it has utility, but it seems like every time this government tries to make things more simple, it makes it more expensive for people and far more complicated. There needs to be a simplification of the tax code. They need to do away with some of the exemptions and some of the deductions. We don't have the money. How is it that we can tell people, hey, these are the deductions and the exemptions you're entitled to, but on the other hand say, oh, and by the way, we're $1 trillion in debt every year. Talk about gross mismanagement. There needs to be some kind of consolidation, a revamping of the financial structure, or we're going to continue down the abyss. And I think this intelligent, just across-the-board cut is going to have really deleterious effects upon us.
All right, I'm going to make a thing here. I'm going to make a thing.
Okay.
We don't have to make a thing. We're going to make a thing.
Yeah.
You're talking about people who are making, must be a considerable amount of money, who are able to take full advantage of all of those loopholes.
I think there are people that make $50,000 and $70,000 a year who pay zero in tax. Not everyone. There are some. They should not be allowed to pay no tax.
Well, if
Not
they're making
someone who-
$50,000 or $70,000 a year, they cannot afford to pay an attorney or an accountant to help them find the loopholes. I know I can't.
Yeah, I mean,
I pay tax cut
so what is
software.
Okay, so what are you thinking, that if someone earns 50 or 70,000, they definitely, all of them pay tax? Because I can tell you, they don't.
What
I
I'm
used- I
saying
used to
is,
be a-
but what I'm saying is, when the terms that you're talking about, so you're not just talking about the people who are in poverty. You're not just talking about the people who are earning lower wages. You are talking about some people who are not just making $50,000 to $70,000.
Yeah, I'm talking about the population in general.
Some people are making $500,000 and $600,000.
I agree. I used to be a tax attorney, right? I've done so much tax preparation. I've consulted with people. The majority of people that I dealt with, that I prepared taxes for, I consulted with, they aren't people that were making $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $2 million. I mean, I think there's a large body of people out there that try to seek expertise to try to reduce their tax burden. If someone said, hey, look, if I don't go and get the proper expertise, I'm looking at paying $10,000, $15,000 in taxes, but if I spend, $450, $750, $2,500 by, securing the appropriate advice, I'll be able to save myself, $14,000 or $10,000. They're going to do it. And I think that happens. I don't want to say that it's a rampant problem and that it's out of control, but I think
that's exactly what you're saying. You're saying it's out of control, that we need to get this 50%, and even Mitt Romney said it was only 47. You're saying we get this 50% of people who aren't paying taxes, and you're making a deal of it. You are saying it's a rampant issue.
I think the 47% that he spoke about was 47% of the population that participate in some kind of a public benefit program. I think that's what he was talking about. And it might not be 50%, might be less, but it's approximately 50% of the wage earners don't pay an income tax. Yeah, they'll pay Social Security tax, they'll pay the Medicare tax, they'll pay certain taxes that are mandatory that they have to pay. There needs to be a simplification of the tax code so that people pay taxes. Now, if someone is in a particularly distressed condition or position, whether it's a medical disability, whether it's something else, there can be certain accommodations made, but the code as it's written right now, and what is it, 2,000, 3,000 pages, needs to be simplified, and the deductions and the exemptions that are available need, to be reviewed and looked at. And they need to be dealt with. There isn't money. If we do nothing, the kind of things that I said we were going to talk about in the cuts in the Massachusetts budget are going to come to roost. And it's not going to be just this one year. It's going to happen over and over and over, and there's going to be a continual deterioration of these programs. And the people who need help are not going to be able to have it. In any event, we're going to have to head to a break right now. When we come back, I promise I'm going to give you the first word.
Oh boy.
When I was told I had to come for therapy, I said, oh, please, can I go to Millbury Healthcare?
I came here because I had a stroke. My husband looked around and he came here and he said, by far, it was the most joyful, happy-looking place. I like friendship. My life is friendship. And I really experienced friendship here.
If you have to be somewhere, come here.
that.
When did the notices go up on the trees?
At least
When did
at
the
least
notices
20.
go up on the trees on the west
well,
side?
you
Tell
know.
me, Big Mouth.
I will tell you, Big.
You don't know.
I know, Big Mouth.
That's right.
No, I'm not wrong. No, I'm not wrong. All right.
You are wrong.
Okay.
You're wrong.
People can call this show and beat the living hell out of me every single day, and unless you walk over the line, and that line would be swearing or getting involved in some racial thing, I don't shut anybody out of here.
The Massachusetts Symphony Orchestra returns to Mechanics Hall Saturday, December 8th for its annual Holiday Pops concert, an ideal celebration for friends and family or your company's holiday party. This treasured holiday tradition features favorites of the season, light classics, dance theater, local college and university courses, and the tops of Broadway. Tickets are on sale now by calling 508-754-1234 or by visiting masymphony.org.
Hi, I'm Dale LePage.
And I'm Roberta Mandela.
Tune in to WooTube Episode 10, playing right now on Charter TV3.
You'll see 5 brand new videos from local entertainers and an interview with Eric Godin of the Lucky Dog Music Hall.
From rock bands, metal bands, we've done country bands, acoustic nights.
Happy Thanksgiving!
Yeah, speaking of Thanksgiving, I thought we were dressing up. What's that supposed to be?
I am dressed up. Are you ready for this? I'm pie, baby. I'm pie. Get it?
Pie? I'll give you pie.
Your family's favorite shows shouldn't have to fight to be seen. With Charter, you get 4 DVRs, so now every family member can watch what they want, when they want, where they want, without any battles. Call now to get DVR service for your home.
Coverage from Central Massachusetts for Central Massachusetts.
State police I spoke to today said the damage and destruction they saw is beyond words.
The ease of online shopping comes with the risk of scams, fraud, and identity theft.
Because of its size, Luke says Worcester will be a potential site for at least one dispensary.
When the officer arrived, the dog charged, jumped up, and started to attack.
Reporters in the field and an in-depth local forecast. Worcester News Tonight on Charter TV3.
I'm Andy Lacombe from Worcester News Tonight, wishing you all a Merry Christmas, a happy holiday season, and the very best in the new year.
Welcome back to the Senior Focus. Again, I'm Nick Kaltzis, your host, and I'm here with Bob Dwyer. And I promised Bob the first word when we came back from break. So, Bob,
I go for it now.
Give me the word.
So, is this like a Groucho Marx thing, and the duck is going to fall? You say the magic word, and you win a tax break.
We'll do that next time.
What I want to say about what we've been talking about in terms of reforming the tax code, I would believe that anybody who's tried to do their own taxes is going to say, this is confusing as heck. We need to change this. What do they mean by this? Alternative minimum tax. Right. What does that mean? Why are there 2 tax rates in Massachusetts for state taxes? Right. I don't get that. And I've had a conversation with Senator Mike Moore about that, and I still don't understand it. So yeah, I mean, I think there's a really good case to say that the tax code needs reformation, maybe going to a flat tax.
Right.
You know, so that we're all paying around the same percentage.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that we're all paying the same amount.
Right.
You know, so you look at the deductions and say, okay, we're going to do away with some of these deductions, but we're only going to charge this much as a flat tax rate. I'm all for that, again, provided that people who are in the distressed situations, as you said, are taken care of. That people who find themselves without a job, have their home repossessed, foreclosed, have this, that, and the other thing going on, major health situations, that there are considerations offered to them so that you're not going to get that 1-2 punch, the knockout punch, that's going to create that underclass of people.
I'll agree with you. I do need to say that, you know, you take a look at those that are unemployed, their homes are in foreclosure, a 2.1% economic growth rate's not going to cut it. we're going to have a problem. And those people are still going to be there. Now, I'm not suggesting that we turn our back on them. What I am suggesting is we need to implement policies that are going to be good for the economy and help it expand and grow. Or we're going to have fiscal problems. And, you know, statements like food stamps and unemployment insurance benefits are, you know, the best bang for the buck for, you know, growing the economy, I think is ludicrous.
Well, I think the food stamp piece particularly is ludicrous.
Yeah.
I think when you consider what people get for food stamps, you know, you're not getting an awful lot of money in your food stamps, and maybe you're going to be lucky to get a coupon for a farmer's market in season. But I know people who have gone for food stamps, and they're saying, I had to provide all this paperwork for what, 10, 15, maybe sometimes $20 in the food stamps. You know, and the reality is that electronic benefit transfer cards, there's not enough, we're not able to monitor them close enough. And there are, unfortunately, people on the retail side who are willing to do things to accept those in payment for things they shouldn't be selling to these folks. But the reality is, part of the issue we have here is not the programs themselves, it's the regulation of the programs, it's the monitoring of the programs, it's the lack of oversight for people who are utilizing the programs. And so people can slip into the program when they shouldn't be into the program. People are not being appropriately, programs not being appropriately monitored, and there are people who do absolutely, and I know people who take advantage of the programs who shouldn't be doing them.
Talking about oversight of the programs, have you heard about certain bills that have gone up federally where they're seeking to increase look-backs to 10 years?
Well, I'm almost at a loss for words on this one. 10 years is a long time.
A long time.
It's a very, very long time.
It is floating around out there.
And even 5 years has been a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you're going to start penalizing people for wanting to help their families, who want to pass on whatever they have, whether it's a house or other wealth or other things that they have, who want to pass those on to family members. You know, there has been that growing movement to hold the family members accountable for another individual's needs. I'm not saying that families should not be held accountable in any way, shape, or form, but let's be realized, in an economy particularly like we have now, that to hold you responsible because your mother's in a nursing home, so we're going to put a lien on your house, or we're going to try and make you help pay for that, whether it might not even be out of the individual's home sale, but to try to attach your revenue and try to attach your income to help pay for that, I think that is outrageous.
I think that what they're looking to do is increase the look-back period, and there are two avenues. One is, I think, a 10-year look-back on Medicaid fraud. So if the federal government determines there's some kind of Medicaid fraud being perpetrated, they can go back 10 years. The other is eligibility for Medicaid. And just the other day, I saw there are two, I think two senators that are, trying to increase the look-back periods. I don't think, not to make another responsible for their parent, but to make it so that the parent is not able to transfer funds or plan and have to denude themselves in the event of some kind of a medical condition, a medical situation. 10 years is a long time.
It's a very, very long time. I'm flabbergasted because I hadn't heard that. And I just get very, very concerned about, what people will do. As it is, I think that there again, let's look at the loopholes that are available for people. Who can hide money, and people who do hide money, as opposed to people who don't have that opportunity or don't have that kind of money to hide.
The way I envision the system, and what I do as a lawyer, and I don't just appear on the TV or on the radio.
No, you hide money.
Yeah, I do not hide money. I implement whatever the law says. I don't do anything that's nefarious or that's against the law. I'll do whatever the law says. Now, rather than this mindless across-the-board cuts that are going to hurt everyone, there needs to be thoughtful consideration to how they're going to proceed, or truly will affect everyone. So rather than increasing look-backs to 10 years, if there's other policies that can be instituted to help the economy grow at more than a 2.1 or 2.2% rate, there'll be more revenue that's being generated, more money coming in, and okay, maybe they won't have to go to a 10-year look back. So if they take a look at everything in totality, the economy itself might be saved, but if they just take these ideological positions, we're not going to raise taxes, we're not going to look at the tax code, we're not going to look at entitlements, Obamacare, not on the table, we're going to be led into a situation where, I can tell you, they wouldn't run their own household like this. Why are they running our households like this?
I agree. So what you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, that both sides need to be a little bit more pliable.
Oh, no doubt about it.
More flexible in how they're looking at things.
I've said it and I'll say it again. There shouldn't be this thought of two parties, Democrats, Republicans, we're all Americans. Now, they need to get together and they need to help us through the situation. We rely on them. We elect them. Basically, they're our employees. They go there to do the job. If they're not going to do the job, it's time to replace the people that are there with others who will do the job. And on that note, we're going to head to another break right now.
Sounds good.
When I was told I had to come for therapy, I said, oh, please, can I go to Millbury Healthcare?
I came here because I had a stroke. My husband looked around and he came here and he said, by far, it was the most joyful, happy-looking place. I like friendship. My life is friendship. And I really experienced friendship here.
If you have to be somewhere, come here.
Please join us for a wonderful collection of holiday concerts from Central New England and for Central New England, only on Charter TV 3.
Come on, it's lovely when the full sleigh ride together with you.
And happy holidays from all of us at Charter TV 3. Charter TV 3 and UMass Memorial Healthcare have teamed up to bring you the latest news and trends in healthcare. Health Watch, presented by UMass Memorial Healthcare, brings you the healthcare topics that are important to you. From stroke prevention to allergies, skincare to sports injury prevention, and nutrition to pregnancy, Health Watch and UMass Memorial Healthcare informed you on the issues that affect you on a daily basis. Health Watch on Charter TV 3. For extended interviews with UMass Memorial Healthcare experts, log on to our website.
Today's Charter tip: get a true HD experience. Some people buy an HD TV and wonder why the picture isn't as good as expected. They forgot they need an HD signal too. With an HD cable box and signal from Charter, plus your HD TV, you'll see the difference on over 100 channels available in HD. You'll even get 1,500 TV shows and movies available in HD on demand. Just another way Charter gives you more. Go to charter.net/tips to learn more today.
Tired of weather reports that don't focus on Central Mass? Introducing Worcester Weather, the only video weather report for Worcester. Worcester Weather is easily accessible 24/7 by visiting chartertv3.com and is updated throughout the day to give you the best video forecast possible. Worcester Weather also airs at 5 p.m. during the Jordan Levy Show and every Worcester News Tonight telecast. Worcester Weather gives you the local forecast you have always wanted. Worcester Weather on Charter TV 3 and chartertv3.com. Brought to you by Berterra Nissan of Auburn.
I'm Jim Hurley, Chief of Police for the town of Leicester, with an important safety message. Every 22 minutes, someone dies in an alcohol-related motor vehicle accident. On any given weekend, 1 in 10 drivers on America's roads has been drinking. A high number of drunk driving deaths and accidents come in the teenage group. Every single injury and death caused by drunk driving is preventable. Don't become a statistic. This safety message is brought to you by the Central Mass Chiefs of Police Association and Charter Communications.
I'm Siobhan Connolly from Worcester News Tonight, wishing you and your family a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Welcome back to the Senior Focus. Again, I'm your host, Nick Alsis. I'm here with Bob Dwyer. And Bob, I did want to talk about some of the cuts that seniors can expect in the Older Americans Act program from sequestration.
Right.
I mean, I take a look at some of the numbers, and what is it, like $31 million that's provided under what, Title III?
Yeah, Title III of the Older Americans Act.
All right,
So we get 31.28 million.
And when people think, okay, what's Title III? What is Title III?
Well, Title III is the part of the Older Americans Act
Yep.
that allows for the support of programs, various things, not just administration, but supportive services, nutrition services, health education services, and caregiving programs. Also out of that will come services for protecting elders.
Right.
The Ombudsman program, which works in nursing homes, et cetera. So all those programs are funded, at least in whole or in part, under the Older Americans Act.
And you know, I really am so interested in providing information and education, helpful information, you know, for our senior population. And when you see something like this and the cuts that would come about as a result of sequestration and basically across the board cuts of all these different programs, it is particularly disheartening. You know, you take a look at the $31.2 million that is provided, right?
Right.
We're looking at like a $2.5 million cut.
Yes.
So we're talking not quite 10%, but almost 10%.
Correct. Well, that's the 8% that people are talking about.
Right,
That's
right.
the 8%.
Right. Title 3B, supportive services. What kind of services might they be? I just want people that are watching the program, you know, we'll say Title 3B supportive services, and I know they're sitting there thinking,
What
okay,
does that mean?
what's that?
The supportive services are things like transportation, particularly medical transportation, volunteer transportation for people who are blind. We're also talking about crisis intervention services.
Right.
We're talking about legal aid services that are free for seniors. So all those particular things come under Title III. There's a myriad of things, including our own information referral services that we offer that may have to see a cut.
Now, you know, the Title 3C programs, those are the meal programs.
The meal programs, Title 3C in congregate, or again in home delivered or Meals on Wheels.
Now, the Nutrition Services Incentive Program,
The
what is that?
NSIP is a bonus that's given. It's not really itself Older Americans Act. It's really through the FDA. And it's a bonus given to nutrition programs based on the number of meals that they serve. Okay, so there's a certain amount of money allotted. It helps them provide either more meals or subsidizes the existing meals. When people are paying $2 or $3 as a suggested donation, that doesn't cover the cost of the meal.
Right.
So, and not everybody pays the suggested donation anyway. Right. So the rest of the meal gets paid for either by Older Americans Act monies. So here we're talking almost $1 million, over $1 million just for meals alone that we would lose. And this NSIP, or Nutrition Services Incentive Program. We've already faced in the state state lunch money cuts, which is the state money that was going in to assist, you know, the expansion of that same program. So we've seen cuts in the program. We have gone back and forth with waiting lists already in nutrition programs, And now we're going to face, if the sequestration takes place, we'll face again that 250,000 meals that won't get served.
Title 3D, Preventative Health Programs.
It's called Health Promotion, Disease Prevention. There's a concentration here on programs to help older persons better understand whatever chronic diseases they might have and how best to live with them, to live in a more healthy fashion. And in addition to that, there's some of it that has gone towards medication management assistance to help people understand why they shouldn't be taking two different medications together. What's the interaction?
Yeah, so that's a lot about education and information.
Education. 3D is almost all education.
Right. It's probably, in my estimation, not sufficiently funded as it is. So to see a cut to the program is, I think, devastating. Title 3E.
The National Family Caregivers Program.
Yeah, and you know how many people that I see, I don't want to say on a daily basis, but almost on a daily basis, that say, hey, look, I take care of my parent, I take care of my brother, I take care of my niece or a cousin, and it's putting a significant financial strain on my household. Is there a program out there where I can get some remuneration or reimbursement for the money that I lay out? This is the kind of program that they're talking about, isn't it?
This can help them do certain things. It's not really going to pay them for what they do.
Yep.
There are state programs that, depending upon the situation, might assist them with some remuneration. But in this program, it could help them pay for respite. Because that kind of stress that you're talking about, the financial stress, puts a lot of other stress on an individual. Sometimes they need to get away.
I agree.
So this program might pay for a couple days in a nursing home so the person can, the caregiver can get away, or may help build a ramp, or help with certain things within the house that will help the caregiving be more easily taken care of.
Is it directed toward a particular type of ailment, Alzheimer's, dementia? So it doesn't matter what you have.
It has no difference what the person has.
Well, Bob, I want to thank you for joining me today. I want to let all
pleasure.
our viewers know that in the event you have questions, comments, concerns, you want, you have an idea on a particular show you'd like to see, please contact me at theseniorfocus.com. Drop me an email, and I will respond to you. Or perhaps, if you have an idea, it'll be on the show for you. So thank you. Join us next week for more Senior Focus. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Dan.